Okay, so let's start with something really personal. Something I think many people don't quite grasp until they're actually living it. And that's the evolving social circle and the whole emotional landscape.
Yeah.
The maybe stark reality is by the time you reach 80, your phone just doesn't ring as often.
Right.
And it's not usually because people have stopped caring. It's often because so many of the people who used to call, well, they're simply no longer around.
It's that simple and that hard.
We've sort of termed it the disappearing circle.
Yeah.
We're talking about friends passing away, neighbors moving into assisted living, perhaps, even family becoming less available because, they're managing their own incredibly busy lives. And it's not just the finality of death, is it? It's more like this creeping, quiet absence.
That's a good way to put it. Creeping.
That familiar lunch you used to have with a friend every Tuesday, it just stops happening. That Sunday voice you always heard after church.
Yeah.
It's gone. And here's where it, I think, really hits home. No one quite replaces them. People your own age are thinning out naturally. And younger folks, lovely as they are,
Sure.
they don't always fill that exact same space in your heart.
No, they can't. It's a different kind of connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this shrinking circle, it doesn't just affect your calendar. It goes deeper. It profoundly affects your spirit. Loneliness isn't just about being physically alone sometimes.
Yeah.
It's often about feeling, invisible. It's that feeling when you wake up and realize fewer and fewer people really know your life story or remember you in your prime or even just check in to see if you're doing okay. And when you lose those really long-standing connections, your actual sense of self can start to feel a bit slippery. It leads to those quiet, unsettling questions like, do I still matter?
That's such a powerful point. And what's fascinating, or maybe poignant is the better word, is the specific kind of quiet pain that comes with what we call the burden of outliving others. After 80, this isn't just some possibility. It becomes a recurring pattern for many. You find yourself saying goodbye again and again to friends who knew you when you were young, to siblings who shared your whole history, maybe even to your spouse. And it's not just the grief of that single loss, it's the sheer weight of carrying all those shared memories alone.
Right. You become the soul keeper.
Exactly. You might be the last one who remembers that funny thing that happened back in 1963, or the only person left who knows the real story behind, say, the dent in the old garage door. There's no one left to turn to and say, hey, remember when?
And have them nod with that same knowing smile.
Precisely. That's gone. And this isn't just loneliness in the usual sense. It's realizing that nobody else remembers your life quite the way you do. Nobody else holds your complete history anymore. And for some people, that can even lead to a kind of, maybe survivor's guilt. A quiet wondering about why you're still here when so many others aren't.
I can imagine.
I remember speaking with Robert, he was 87, and he shared that the hardest part of aging for him wasn't his aching knees or his eyesight.
Yeah.
It was the mornings when he'd just instinctively reach for a second coffee mug out of sheer habit. Or sometimes, he said, he'd hear his late wife's voice in his head, maybe answering a question he hadn't even asked out loud.
Oh, wow. That's profound.
It really is. That's the emotional cost, you see. Grief in this stage often shows up as this stillness, the strange quietness that just settles into your daily life. Charles, another gentleman, also 87, put it so clearly. He said, I've been to more funerals in the last 5 years than I can count, and every single time a little piece of my own life goes with them.
Gosh, like being unanchored.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Feeling unanchored, like you're floating in a world that keeps moving forward while these irreplaceable pieces of your past just quietly vanish.
That is a truly poignant truth, and I think one that probably resonates deeply with many listening. But while our circles do undeniably change, here's where it gets, maybe a little more empowering. You still have the power to plant new seeds, even now. It's not about trying to rebuild exactly what's gone because, like you said, you can't.
Right.
But it is about making sure you're not just drifting alone. Many people find immense value in volunteering. It doesn't just help others. It creates new connections.
Definitely. A sense of purpose, too.
Absolutely. Others cultivate just simple, consistent interactions. Maybe chatting with the same cashier at the grocery store or joining a library book club, something like that. The key seems to be seeking out maybe just one or two meaningful relationships, someone you can share a laugh with or perhaps just sit with in comfortable silence.
Quality over quantity, maybe.
Exactly. And sometimes that means actively reaching out, even when it feels a bit awkward, sending a letter saying yes when a neighbor invites you for tea. And importantly, it's also about giving your presence where it's needed, maybe mentoring someone younger, sharing your stories, sharing that hard-earned wisdom.
Your experience is valuable.
Hugely valuable. You might feel sometimes like nobody's listening, but trust me, someone is. And your life experience could be the very anchor they need. So growing older doesn't have to mean becoming irrelevant, staying visible, staying connected. It does take effort. And it starts by remembering that while your immediate circle might be smaller, your inherent value hasn't shrunk one bit.
That's so important to hold on to. And look, if you're finding these insights we're sharing valuable, we genuinely love to hear from you. Maybe leave a comment below. Share something based on your own experiences, perhaps what's resonated with you so far.
Yeah, we'd love that.
And if you haven't already, please think about subscribing to our channel and maybe share this deep dive with someone who you think might truly benefit from hearing these perspectives. Your support really does help us continue these kinds of explorations.
It really does. Okay, so moving on from the social world.
Right. Now, let's turn our attention inward a bit to our second truth. What we're calling the body's subtle rebellion.
Ah, yes. The body. And this isn't just about your body aging in some predictable linear way. It's more like it starts to negotiate with you.
Negotiate. I like that. Explain.
Well, one day your knees might work perfectly fine, right?
Mhm.
The next day they ache with every single step, seemingly for no reason at all. It's rarely the dramatic, sudden decline that catches people off guard. It's more this quiet, inconsistent rebellion.
The unpredictability.
Exactly. That stiffness that maybe wasn't there last week, the appetite that just vanishes without warning, that afternoon nap that shifts from being a luxury to an absolute necessity. Most people expect, their strength to fade gradually. But what really throws them is the sheer unpredictability of it all. You might sleep soundly for 3 nights in a row, feel great, then bam. Suddenly you find yourself wide awake at 3 a.m. just staring at the ceiling, and every creak in the house sounds amplified.
Been there. Not at 80, but I know the feeling.
Right. Or your digestion, which maybe was always reliable, suddenly starts reacting badly to foods you've eaten your entire life without a problem. It feels like your body keeps changing the rules without sending you the memo.
Yeah, no warning.
And that capriciousness, that randomness, it can feel like a kind of betrayal, can't it? By the very body you've lived in for 80 plus years. You start to wonder, okay, is this the new normal now, or is this just a passing glitch? And that constant not knowing, it can really wear you down emotionally.
It absolutely can.
It's not just about the physical discomfort. It's the emotional toll of not feeling steady and predictable within your own skin anymore.
And it's a really critical distinction you're making there, because what's often fascinating and frustrating for the person experiencing it is the near invisibility of this internal struggle to people around them.
Oh, that's true.
On the outside, you might look perfectly fine. You're still walking, maybe doing your chores, still cracking jokes.
Putting on a brave face.
Exactly. But younger people, even well-meaning family, they rarely see how much sheer energy it takes just to maintain that rhythm. They don't see the constant internal adjustments you're making, how you might plan your errands around your good hours,
Right, window of opportunity.
or how you might skip a meal just to avoid potential heartburn later, or maybe why you suddenly sit down. Not because you're exhausted necessarily, but because standing for one more minute makes your legs tremble. This isn't just simple age-related decline. It's more like a shift into what some physiologists call adaptive physiology. Your body is subtly reallocating resources, prioritizing basic maintenance over peak performance.
That makes sense.
And the key insight here, I think, is that fighting this natural recalibration often just leads to more frustration. Understanding it, however, allows you to strategically preserve your energy and maybe seek targeted support.
Work with it, not against it.
Precisely. But the hard part is that this subtle breakdown, it doesn't stop. And it doesn't always follow a neat pattern. One day you might feel a fleeting sense of youthfulness returning, which gives you hope. And the next day you feel every bit your chronological age, maybe even older, and that hope just slips away again. It's not weakness, though. That's crucial. It's simply the reality of the body working harder to maintain its basic functions. You're still you.
Right.
But now you really need to listen more carefully, move perhaps a bit more gently, and definitely rest more often.
So, okay, how do we navigate this reality? What's the takeaway? Well, maybe embrace routines, even really simple ones.
Like what?
Like drinking warm water first thing in the morning, doing some gentle stretching before bed, stepping outside to get some sunlight, even if it's just for 10 minutes on the porch. These aren't grand gestures, are they?
No, very manageable.
They're small, consistent actions that kind of remind your body, hey, I'm still on your side here. We're in this together. It's about adjusting with a quiet strength, not by resisting the changes, but by learning how to gracefully move with them.
Moving with it. I like that.
Yeah, which actually brings us quite nicely to our third truth, the shrinking of personal freedom. And this one can be genuinely frustrating.
Oh, I can imagine.
Even if you're still sharp as a tack, totally capable, fiercely independent, people around you often, sadly, the people you love the most, they begin, little by little, to treat you as if you're not.
The well-meaning interference.
Exactly. Your freedom starts to shrink. It might begin with small things. Perhaps your adult children start insisting on driving you everywhere, even when you know perfectly well you're still fine behind the wheel for short trips.
Right. Taking the keys away, symbolically or literally.
Or they begin questioning what you eat or when you sleep or how you take your medications. And it's so important to remember, like you said, it almost always comes from a place of love and genuine concern.
Of course. They're worried.
But their worry can make them overstep. And suddenly you find you're not the one making the final call about your own day-to-day life. You're being advised or guided or sometimes gently pushed.
Patronized almost.
Yes, and this is where that deep sense of frustration can really creep in. You know your own limits. You feel you've earned the right to choose what matters to you. But the world around you subtly starts deciding for you, as if hitting 80 somehow cancels out a lifetime of good judgment and self-control. You might even find yourself feeling, again, that word, invisible. Invisible in conversations, maybe, as if your preferences just don't carry the same weight they once did.
That phrase you used, invisible in conversations, that's incredibly powerful because this really is one of the quiet but persistent battles of aging well.
It is a battle, isn't it?
It can be. I remember Joyce, she was 84, telling me how her daughter, with absolutely the best intentions, started organizing almost every single part of her day, from her morning walks down to what shows she watched on TV in the evening. And Joyce said it made her feel like a child again. Her independence was just slowly being erased, not because she genuinely couldn't function, but because others just assumed she couldn't or soon wouldn't be able to.
That's the core of it, the assumption.
Right. It's the struggle to hold on to your own agency, your own decision-making power, in a world that often means well, but doesn't always genuinely listen. It's not about being stubborn or difficult.
Yeah.
It's about preserving your dignity. It's about still having a say in your own life. It's about being asked, not just told what to do. For many people, that loss of autonomy can actually feel far more debilitating than some of the physical aches and pains.
Absolutely. So what's the actionable takeaway here? What can people do? Well, setting boundaries at this stage isn't selfish. In fact, it's absolutely necessary for your well-being.
You have to advocate for yourself.
You really do. You can and probably should practice saying things like, I really appreciate your concern, but I'm comfortable handling this myself right now. Or maybe, I know you mean well, darling, but I really need to make this decision for myself.
Clear and kind.
Exactly. The people who love you might be a bit surprised at first, maybe even resistant. But over time, if you're consistent, they'll likely learn to respect it. Because the truth is, the more you actively protect your independence and your autonomy, the longer you stay meaningfully connected to the world in a way that truly matters to you. Your choices, what you eat, who you visit, how you spend your precious time, they aren't just preferences. They are fundamental expressions of your identity.
Yes.
And no matter how old you are, your identity deserves space and respect.
Well said.
Which leads us, I think, to our fourth truth. And this can be one of the most humbling, facing your own fragility with grace.
Fragility, that's a loaded word for some.
It is. And we're not just talking about bones becoming more brittle, though that's part of it. It's more about a fragility in everyday things. Things you used to do completely without thinking.
Like what? Give us examples.
Okay, like tying your shoelaces. Or getting up easily out of a low, comfy armchair. Or even just holding a cup of tea steady without a slight tremor in your hand. It's not necessarily that you feel old every single moment of the day.
No, it comes and goes.
Right. It's that every small stumble, maybe, or every minor ache, or every simple task that suddenly requires conscious effort, it serves as a reminder that the body now has limits that simply weren't there before.
And that realization can be unsettling.
It really can. If you let it, it can deeply shake your confidence. It might make you second guess going for walks alone, or traveling, or maybe even cooking a familiar meal if it involves heavy pans. You might find yourself starting to plan your day not based on what you want to do, but on what you feel you can safely do.
Mm.
And that fundamental shift, while obviously practical and sensible, it can make your world feel like it's gradually getting smaller.
It can. But what's fascinating here, I think, is how we can reframe fragility. Maybe fragility isn't weakness at all.
Okay. How so?
Maybe it's actually wisdom in motion. Think about it. It's your body giving you crucial signals. It's telling you, hey, move a bit more carefully now. Or listen more closely to what I need.
So it's feedback.
Exactly. Valuable feedback. It's your long life reminding you that you've been incredibly strong for so long, and now that strength is simply expressed differently. It's shown in adjusting with grace, not in relying on brute force anymore.
I like that. Strength expressed differently.
I once met this remarkable woman, Nancy. She was 84, and she said something that just stuck with me. She said, I don't mind that I need a cane now. I feel like I earned it.
Wow. Earned it.
Yeah. She said, it's just a reminder that I've walked a long, meaningful road, and look, I'm still going, just with a little more support now. That mindset, that changes everything, doesn't it?
It really does. It's acceptance, not defeat.
Precisely. Because while some people try really hard to hide their limitations or pretend they're still 60,
Which must be exhausting.
right, others find this profound strength in adapting. They willingly use the tools available, the cane, the walker, the hearing aids. They learn to ask for help without feeling ashamed. They take their time, and paradoxically, in doing so, they often preserve their independence for much longer than those who stubbornly refuse to accept the reality of their body's changes.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The message is, don't fight your fragility. Learn to truly work with it.
Yes, partner with it almost.
Strength after 80, maybe it isn't about pushing through pain anymore or proving you can still do everything on your own. Maybe it's about choosing what matters most to you, preserving your precious energy for those things, and continuing to show up in the world present, grateful, and bringing all that accumulated wisdom.
It's absolutely a redefinition of what strength even means at that stage. A powerful one.
Yeah. Now for our fifth truth, and this one's quite intriguing, the curious paradox of time.
Time. It gets slippery.
Doesn't it? Many people reach 80 and feel as though time has suddenly hit the fast forward button. The years just fly by. Months seem to blur into weeks.
Mm-hmm. That acceleration feeling.
But simultaneously, there's often this unique sense of the present moment becoming much more vivid. You might have more actual free time, perhaps, than you ever have before.
Right. Post-retirement, kids grown.
But paradoxically, you have less future time. That urgency you felt around career or raising a family or building a fortune, a lot of that just naturally fades away.
Which must create quite a different mental space.
Exactly. It creates this fascinating headspace where a reflection on your life, your legacy, mingles with this really deep appreciation for the now. It shifts your focus, doesn't it? From always thinking, what's next, to what is truly happening right now.
That's absolutely spot on. And it's not just a subjective feeling, There's some psychology behind it tied to how our brains process novelty versus routine over long periods. For many, the past can suddenly feel incredibly vivid, almost tactile.
Yeah, you remember details from decades ago.
Precisely. Well, the future becomes a much more abstract concept. But the deep insight here, I believe, is that this shift isn't some kind of deficit. It's actually an invitation.
An invitation to what?
An invitation to savor. To truly be present for conversations, for the simple taste of your morning coffee, for the warmth of the sunlight on your skin. It changes the very nature of ambition, too. Instead of constantly chasing external achievements, many find themselves focusing more on simply being kind, being present for others, being a source of comfort or quiet wisdom. It can be a really beautiful, almost unburdened way of experiencing time.
Unburdened. I like that. And, that leads us directly into our sixth truth. The heightened sensory experience and the profound joy that can be found in really simple things.
Ah, yes, the small wonders.
Exactly. When those bigger life pressures start to ease off and you're living more in that present moment you just described, your senses often seem to become sharper to the smaller joys, the everyday wonders.
Yeah.
Like the taste of a perfectly ripe strawberry in season, the feeling of a grandchild's small hand holding yours, the intricate details you suddenly notice in a bird's song just outside your window. Life becomes less about accumulation, maybe, and much more about appreciation. There's a quiet kind of freedom in that, isn't there?
There really is. It's a beautiful phenomenon. Many people I've spoken with describe it almost as discovering a curated joy.
Curated joy. Explain that.
Well, you're no longer quite so distracted by the need to, conquer the world or climb the next ladder. Instead, you start consciously or unconsciously curating your daily experiences for maximum contentment.
Choosing what brings peace.
Exactly. The smell of freshly baked bread, the simple rhythm of a familiar walk, a quiet conversation over a cup of tea. It's like a return to the essentials, but often with a depth of feeling, a richness that just wasn't possible when life felt like a frantic race.
Because you weren't paying attention the same way.
Precisely. The insight here is about active choice. Choosing peace over pressure, choosing presence over performance, and finding immense satisfaction in those small moments that our younger, busier selves might have just rushed right past without noticing. It teaches a really profound lesson, I think, about what truly enriches a life.
That's a very powerful reframe. Okay, and finally, let's touch on our seventh truth, the remarkable resilience of the human spirit. And alongside that, the quiet fear of cognitive change.
Yes, the spirit and the mind. A crucial pairing.
While those physical changes we talked about are undeniable, the human spirit's capacity to adapt, to find new purpose, to maintain curiosity even late in life is, well, it's truly astonishing sometimes.
It really is. People find new hobbies, new passions.
Absolutely. Yet, alongside that resilience, there's often an almost universal apprehension, isn't there? About losing mental sharpness, about forgetting names or struggling with memories. This could be a significant internal battle, even if it's something that's rarely discussed openly.
It's a huge one, and it's a crucial truth to acknowledge with honesty and compassion. The mind at 80 or 85 or 90 is often incredibly resilient. It's frequently full of a unique kind of wisdom, a wisdom derived from decades of pattern recognition, of seeing how things play out, of accumulated experience.
That long view.
Exactly, the long view. But that fear of cognitive decline, even just minor slips, like forgetting where you put your keys or blanking on a word, it's very real. And it can be quite isolating if you feel you're the only one experiencing it. The deeper insight here, perhaps, is that maintaining mental engagement, staying curious, continuing to learn new things, even something as simple as trying a new card game or tackling a new recipe, it's not just about fighting decline.
Right. It's more positive.
It's about celebrating the brain's continued capacity for growth and adaptation, even if it works a bit differently now. It's about recognizing that intellectual vitality can persist and that your lifetime of experiences contributes to a richness of thought that's completely unique to this stage of life. The challenge, then, is to actively cultivate that.
Keep feeding the brain.
Yes. Keep those neural pathways firing. And maybe confront that fear, not by ignoring it, but with knowledge, with engagement, and with self-compassion.
So, getting older after 80, as we've explored today, it really isn't just about dealing with the physical stuff, is it? It's about facing some of life's hardest truths, hopefully with your head held high and your heart open.
Yeah.
You don't have to pretend it's all easy sailing, because it's often not, but there's real deep power in knowing these realities exist and then choosing to meet them with wisdom, not with fear.
Absolutely.
You listening right now, you are not a burden.
Yeah.
You are not forgotten. You're still here, and your presence, your stories, your laughter, maybe even your stubborn spirit, it matters. It matters more than ever. So maybe the advice is take care of your mind. Don't hide your emotions, except that loneliness can happen, but don't give into it completely.
Stay engaged.
Stay engaged, stay curious, stay open. Be honest about money if you need to, but try never to lose your generosity of spirit. Choose kindness, always. And when your body slows down, walk with pride anyway.
That's beautifully put. And perhaps if facing these profound realities really does require a new kind of courage, what uncharted territories of self-discovery might also open up as we navigate this remarkable and often deeply misunderstood chapter of life?
That's a great question to leave people with, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on this whole deep dive. Please leave a comment below, share maybe one thing you learned today or how you plan to use it, or perhaps just an experience that resonated with what we've discussed. Your insights, they really do motivate us.
They truly do. And if you enjoyed this exploration, please consider liking this video, subscribing to our channel if you haven't already, and maybe share it with someone else who might benefit from this conversation. Your support genuinely helps us keep creating content like this.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. We look forward to our next deep dive together.